What's going on, workforce? Brian and the hair man, Chris, rocking the long locks of lusciousness here, bringing you guys a conversation today, focusing in on the new Alliance raid. We just talked about PvP. If you guys missed that video, highly encourage it. I think there's a lot of really good nuggets of interesting thought there. So if you guys enjoyed that video, thank you. Also, YouTube standard stuff, like, favorite, subscribe, share, yada, yada, yada. You do you. But Chris, we're talking about the new 24-man raid, in which that, like, just from a budgetary perspective, day one, setting some context, if you guys haven't been a part of that, you might get lucky and get a 30-minute run, 35-minute, but more likely, I tend to find that, you got a lot of players coming back. You got a lot of people like dusting off the cobwebs of after finishing Endwalker.
They're as geared as they need to be.
They're as geared as they need to be to go in. It could take you, an hour and a half to finish one run. And yeah, so let's talk about what you're excited about. Like overall, you've been also diving into the lore. You just also ordered some lore books. I don't know if you want me to share that fact, but Chris
pre-ordered I just ordered both lore books.
Yes, I'm so excited. Chris has been also working on an Axel Tilt video. We're going to be posting that to Gaming Kinda, I assume. You also been doing the multi-channel strategy like me. Do you want to plug any of that before we talk about the raid?
It'll have its own channel. It'll be promoted at the time. It needs to live in its own space. Gaming Kinda has moved to pretty much just guides and news only, and everything that's not that will shift off. So these lore discussions and all that. And I've been replaying story. As of this recording, I just got to Revenant's Toll, and so I am progressing there. I had to go fight a mosquito at a drain pipe, so I am, appropriate level of intensity, and so that's really what the Alliance raid is about to me.
Yeah.
I love Alliance raids in general, mechanically. Yorha, for me, I loved mechanically. It was delightful the whole way through. The mechanics are fun. People come into stream and are like, what am I looking at? I was like, yeah. Exactly, you nailed it. You and they're like, no, but I just have questions. Exactly. Like, yeah. And it's awesome. I'm like a Galaga black little ship shooting at little white balls, and then I gotta change my color, and then there's like red girls getting off of trains. Mechanically, I loved it. I've loved all the Alliance raids mechanically. But even as somebody that was not wildly invested in lore, it felt weird to make a 3-part billboard to another game inside of our game. A one-off fight like Monster Hunter made sense to me, but it was a huge billboard. So I am super excited for this to come back and be tied to Final Fantasy XIV, tied to lore. This is meant to be something that goes back and answers some questions, some precursor questions around what they are calling as a whole the 2.0 to 6.0 Heidel and Zodiac arc. That storyline as it is a completion. This is meant to kind of flesh some things out. And so, we can't talk spoilers about what's in the raid yet because we don't know. But just like when you create a character, you choose a patron god. You choose one of the 12. Mm-hmm. And then across the rest of this game, to anybody that's new, and this is their very first video, and they're trying out the critically acclaimed free trial, and they download it and they're in the character creator. I'm like, does that matter? No, it doesn't. It's just your patron god, and then it's it. And like those gods really are. There's occasional little references and things like that. And when I ask about those, like, oh, that's tied to whether or not you got married in game, or oh, that's tied to like there are all these little offshoots. But to have an MSQ canonical big core, not hiding, not extra, you don't have to click a book or talk to an NPC before accepting the quest, like, and then they'll be gone forever. No. This is real canon that's here to tell us about the 12.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I've been waiting for this for a long time, because even back in the day, in 1.0, your patron was able to bestow upon you like a bonus that you had so many charges of. So it's like, okay, so there's some kind of interaction there, but we've never been able to change it. Like there's never been able to change it. So complete speculation here. What I'm about to say is that we've always wondered, like, what if there was some mechanic that related to what you chose so many years ago? So it's like, all right, all the Burgots go into this corner. All of a sudden where you're like, wait a minute, what did I pick? Now I need to remember this and have an actually
It'd
impact.
be the greatest math boss ever.
That would be the greatest math boss the first or second time. Eventually,
The
you're
first
like,
or second time.
yeah, and then eventually you're like, okay, I'm looking for my symbol, and you just memorize, that aspect. But that would be really wild to see if it connected into
character screen. Quick.
like, what did I choose? I can't remember. So before you go in, maybe just check that out. I have no idea if it is going to have any real impact, but just give it a shot. That, it'd be really cool to see if they ultimately tie that together. So at its core, I'm really curious to see about the story because it's called Myths of the Realm. Like, does that have a real impact? Like, are these just like any other, summons that have existed in the past? And instead of being, malevolent and coming down and wreaking havoc and draining the world of Aether, that they've just been living in this sky fortress and, Zeusing it up. I don't know. I'm just really curious.
They said there's 3 fights, which is not atypical, but we only typically get 3 raids.
Well, 3. Right? There's usually 3 raids, 4 fights, 4 bosses, 3 raids.
So I thought that. So he talked about the first 3 fights in the thing, and I'm like, shouldn't there be a 4th fight?
Yeah.
Because just to get to 12, right? You got 3
right.
raids, 6.1, 6.3, 6.5. We got 12. So
12.
unless you're going to start bringing them out 2 at a time,
wow, that's true.
There's got to be a 4th fight.
False balls.
He said the first 2 you'd be able to fall off, and the last one would light you on fire. And so and that's how he kind of phrased it, if I remember correctly. So that's only 3 fights. So I'm interested. There's a lot going on here. He also noted we started in a very small area like we did in the Yorha raid, which for the fact that you're putting 24 people is more dungeon sized for the opening area. And he said that's because, like the Yorha raids, there was going to be an escort carrying us through that. That's big lore, right? Imagine somebody walking us. And then, right, as we get closer to spoiler territory here, as we talk about all this, like, this game has messed with time. So when is the Myths of the Realm? Yeah. When is this Alliance raid? Because that determines
that'd be wild.
That determines who our escort is.
Yeah. That'd be wild. Like, you think of, going, yeah, you're right. Like, not that it's not happening now. It's happening back in the day. That's why we haven't seen them. Because we went back in time and murdered them. Oh, that's going to be freaking crazy. Like I said in our PvP video, like right now, I honestly feel like with the realm, with myths, and even with the story, that my first bit on the game probably might be heavily PvP focused. I might, as an alternate plan, I might get up early like we used to do in the old patch cycles and knock out the story and knock out like the raid. And then that way that's done. And then essentially go live and just stream PvP. I was like, all right, guys, we're just doing PvP. But I haven't ultimately decided what my action plan is on Tuesday, but I'm so excited that we're getting this raid. 6.1 ends up being, or the 0.1 patch ends up being pretty significant, being that we've, everybody tends to overconsume the expansion, and then essentially gets like with all the great games like Elden Ring out right now, it's really probably like a good time for people to have had a break and then come back pretty daggum hard, in my opinion.
The weekend going into the patch.
That's true.
There's going to be a 24-hour maintenance. Guild Wars is in the middle of an expansion and has already announced their next one.
That's huge. Guild Wars 2 already having a 4th expansion, like that is huge. And as soon as it comes to Steam, I think honestly, I'm really curious about like controller support and things like that, because if that can do what I did in New World for Guild Wars, that's going to be, I think, really a game changer for me, personally speaking.
It's only got like 12 buttons. It's perfect.
I know. even with 12.
Like, people look at the UI and they're like, oh, so this is made for controller?
No.
No.
But anyway, that's I think this is going to be a really cool chapter. I think what really excites me about this part of it is that it's going to, in my mind, I think answer so many little mysteries that have been with me this entire time, where I felt like Endwalker really closed a book, finished a chapter. The raid itself, I think, is going to be really exciting. And outside the story of the raid, whatever that ends up equaling, I think raid content necessarily isn't going to be very overly spoilery for people. That's one of the things that I felt like when it comes down to like engagement and content, I'm not talking about others. I'm talking about me personally. I go, oh, I want to hold off. Like, I ended up disengaging way more than I normally do out of 14's like content and directory, with Endwalker being that I had to end up playing it late. But even beyond that, like, oh, I haven't got to see the raid yet, or oh, I haven't seen that yet. Like, so I think essentially with this raid itself, like, I don't think the requirements are going to be as strict for people to be like, all right, I don't want to see anything. Because then at the end of the day, it's like, okay, here are the bosses. Here are the 3. Maybe he meant like the first 2 you can fall off. He didn't talk about the 3rd and then the last being the 4th. It'd be weird to, if they switch it to a 3 fight setup, that, I don't know. Who knows? Like, anything can go. Anything can change.
Anything can go. They said the Ultimate's going to be different this time. We go into that 2 weeks after the patch.
Oh, yeah. Oh, dude, that's going to be freaking cool. That's going to be really cool to see the impact of the next Ultimate, especially as we've seen all the different new players and content creators come into the space and having on, like as content creation.
The Wild Guilds are going to compete again. So I think Echo already confirmed. So like it's been fun to kind of flesh out the ranks. In addition to the familiar faces. Very, very cool. So Alliance Raid is some of my favorite content. It always makes me wish that we had like a little bit harder of a mode or something. But we'll see.
We can always organize our own Alliance Raid and say tanks only.
I mean, if you do a minimum item level and stuff, they punch hard.
Oh, dude,
but most people don't.
That's right. So, if you want that real hard experience, it ends up being the first 2 weeks easily.
Because everybody who doesn't do Savage there is a chance that they are sitting around in like the left side that was given to you by the MSQ, and there are people that they got 1 or 2 dungeon pieces on whatever class they're going to bring in. They haven't played it for a month and a half. They're under geared. And so like it tends to make a bit of a challenge as everybody's, and there's 24. So if like a bomb drops on somebody and they need to get out of the party, and like, maybe 20 people were ready to receive that bomb, but maybe 1 got a phone call and that's the one the bomb picked. So like Alliance Raids just tend to be absolute shenanigans. I adore them as content, and I'm really excited that we're getting some 14 exclusive ones. Even though they may make, to anybody that doesn't know what that term kind of tends to mean within 14 context, that does not mean that it will not pay fan service to other Final Fantasy games in music selection, boss design, references. But it does mean that it belongs here. It is not out of place, and it is designed for 14 by 14, as opposed to something like the Rathalos fight or the Yorha content.
One of the things that we need to do, and this is just kind of my final thought before we wrap up the video, after this raid, because we could make this more of a thing, but we should go back and actually tier list the different Alliance raids by the individuals, and see just generally where you and I fall in terms of like what our favorites are and what our least favorites. And we could rank them based off of just our favorites and even mechanics, right? Like what has, clearly I think the newer stuff is going to have more interesting mechanics. But essentially they're still like, I still have a deep found love for Circus Tower. Like Circus Tower for me, like I still feel excited whenever that pops. Orbone is clearly my favorite. Like the Monastery is by far my favorite raid in the entire 24-man series currently in Final Fantasy. And I say currently because like, where does this fall? And and so that's just kind of where it goes. But prior to that, visually, outside of Orbone, like anytime like Circus Tower pops, Circus Tower and Orbone are like, I love these ones. So that's just kind of where I fall. You got any final thoughts? Want to take us out?
No, I did see that today, on the day we're filming this, Asmongold watched a Brian video on Asmongold's effect on 14. So, go check out Brian's video.
Yeah.
And then any of you that want a lore book, since Brian referenced that I got that earlier, those are on pre-order right now. They ship May 10th. Those are something that's not always available. So I really didn't want to pay for both right now, just when I looked at financially and everything going on in my life right now. But it was pay for it now or pay for it next time it's available. And so so just kind of like weigh that as is appropriate. Obviously, a lore book is more important than your mortgage. But if you have a little bit of disposable cash and you're just like, do I want it to go into a book about 14? Now is the time to make that happen.
Yeah, the on the reaction note, I saw that somebody in his chat said that I'm a clown in the 14 community, and then he goes, says who? And then nobody else said anything. He's like, one guy. It's like, yeah, people call me that. Okay. So to the people who think I'm a clown, I love you. Hopefully you have a good day. Chris, we're ready to final thoughts, but why don't you take us out?
That was it. That was it. From Long Hair and the Clown. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Take care.